When you wake up in the morning, your brain is not fully online until one critical thing happens: light enters your eyes. And not just any light, natural sunlight. The first 30 minutes after waking is a biological window that determines how your entire day will unfold. It dictates your energy levels, your mood, your focus, and even your hormone balance. This isn't just a wellness hack. This is neuroscience. Inside your eyes, specifically in the retina, are specialized cells called intrinsically photosensitive retinal ganglion cells. They have one primary job: detect sunlight, particularly blue light, and send a signal to a brain structure called the suprachiasmatic nucleus, or SCN. This is your master circadian clock. Once it receives that light signal, the SCN initiates a cascade. Cortisol levels rise, but in a healthy, timed way. Melatonin, the sleep hormone, gets suppressed, so you stop feeling groggy. Your metabolism begins to ramp up. Your blood pressure increases just slightly to support alertness. And your brain begins to produce the neurochemicals you need for motivation and mental clarity. You don't need a full hour in the sun. You need about 2 to 10 minutes if it's bright outside, and up to 20 to 30 minutes on overcast days. The key is that it's outside. Indoor light, no matter how bright it feels, is typically 50 to 100 times weaker than natural light. That means standing by a window is not enough. You need to step outdoors, even if it's just onto a balcony or in front of your home. Your skin does not need to be exposed. It's your eyes that matter. And don't worry, this isn't about staring at the sun. In fact, you never need to look directly at it. Just having the light enter your visual field safely is enough. Why does this matter for performance, for your mindset, for your goals? Because if you delay this light exposure, your internal clock drifts. You start to feel sluggish during the day. You experience crashes in energy. And worse, your sleep starts to deteriorate. Your brain doesn't know when to shut down, so it delays melatonin release at night. That's why people who skip morning sunlight often report lying awake at night, staring at the ceiling even when they feel tired. But there's more. Consistent morning sunlight increases the amplitude of your circadian rhythm. That means higher peaks of alertness during the day and deeper troughs of recovery at night. It increases dopamine receptor expression in the brain's reward pathways, making you more motivated and resilient. It enhances your cognitive performance. Athletes recover faster. Creatives think more clearly. Entrepreneurs make sharper decisions. It's a keystone habit that supports every other habit you want to build. Stillness, journaling, exercise, focus, all of it becomes easier when your circadian rhythm is aligned. Because your biology is no longer working against you. You're not trying to push uphill all day. You're flowing with the natural rhythm of your neurobiology. This is what it means to optimize your brain, not through hacks, but through biological alignment. And here's a detail most people miss: the consistency is more important than perfection. It's better to get 5 minutes of sunlight within 30 minutes of waking every single day than 30 minutes once or twice a week. Your brain is a system that learns through repetition. So when you consistently pair waking up with light exposure, your body learns this is the signal. It's time to be alert. You begin to automate energy. You start waking up with clarity and purpose, not fatigue. It also helps anchor your day. It's the first act of discipline that tells your brain today is structured. Today, I own the process. That morning exposure is not just biological, it's psychological. It builds momentum, and momentum over time is what builds transformation. Most people look for complex solutions, but here's the truth: simple. Repeated behaviors are the most powerful force for change. They stack, they compound, and they create identity level shifts that redefine how you live and how you perform. Getting sunlight within the first 30 minutes of waking is one of those foundational behaviors. It rewires your brain, re-energizes your body, and reorganizes your day from the inside out in a world that's constantly pulling at your attention. Notifications, messages, noise, stress. Your nervous system rarely gets a break. Your brain is constantly processing stimuli, filtering information, scanning for threat, seeking reward. And while this responsiveness has helped humans survive for thousands of years, in modern life, it's burning people out. The solution isn't just to escape. It's to train your brain to self-regulate. And one of the most effective tools to do that is daily stillness, just 10 minutes every single day. Stillness doesn't have to look like incense and mantras. This isn't about spiritual symbolism. This is about activating a specific system in your brain and body, the parasympathetic nervous system, which is responsible for rest, recovery, and restoration. When you engage in stillness, whether through meditation, slow breathing, or simply sitting in silence, you send a signal to your brain you're safe. You're not in immediate danger. You're allowed to downshift. Neuroscience shows that just 10 minutes of stillness a day lowers levels of cortisol, the primary stress hormone. It decreases activity in the amygdala, the part of the brain responsible for fear and emotional reactivity. At the same time, it increases connectivity between the prefrontal cortex and insula, the areas of the brain involved in self-awareness, empathy, and rational thinking. That means you become less reactive, more thoughtful, and better able to pause before you act. In a distracted world, that's a superpower. You don't need to be an expert in meditation. You don't need fancy apps or quiet mountaintops. You just need to commit to being still. That might look like sitting in a chair, closing your eyes, and breathing in through your nose, out through your mouth for 10 minutes. It might look like body scanning, mentally checking in with your muscles, your posture, your breath. It might look like repeating a simple phrase to yourself like, I'm here, or inhale, exhale. The method is less important than the consistency. What you're really doing is giving your nervous system a break. You're allowing your neural circuits to reset. And something remarkable happens when you do this daily. Your baseline state changes. You begin to carry stillness into the rest of your life. Conversations become more intentional. Stress becomes something you respond to, not something you get consumed by. Your energy becomes less chaotic and more focused. That's not magic. That's neuroplasticity, your brain's ability to rewire itself based on repeated experience. If you track brainwave activity during meditation or stillness, you'll notice a shift from high frequency beta waves associated with active thinking and problem solving to slower alpha and even theta waves, which are associated with creativity, calm, and insight. This is where the brain integrates information. It's where new connections are made. In fact, some of the most profound cognitive breakthroughs don't happen when you're working. They happen when you're still. Stillness also improves interoception, your ability to sense what's happening inside your body. That might seem subtle, but it's one of the most important skills for emotional intelligence. When you can detect rising tension before it becomes anger or fatigue before it becomes burnout, you give yourself the power to intervene early. You get ahead of the curve. You stop reacting blindly and start responding with precision. And for people who feel like their minds are too busy to sit still, that's exactly why you need it. A busy mind is a mind that has become overtrained in reactivity. You've conditioned yourself to stay in motion, to chase stimulation, to fear boredom. Stillness reverses that conditioning. It teaches you to tolerate quiet. It trains your brain to find peace without distraction. That's not just calming, it's liberating. Even from a purely performance-based perspective, stillness enhances focus, learning, and memory. It acts as a filter, helping you separate signal from noise. It creates a gap between stimulus and response. And in that gap, you gain control, not just over your mind, but over your entire experience of the day. You build the kind of internal structure that allows you to stay calm under pressure, to think clearly in chaos, and to make better decisions not out of fear or fatigue, but from grounded awareness. 10 minutes of daily stillness can give you access to this state. There is something fundamentally powerful about writing down a single goal each morning, not a to-do list, not a dozen scattered priorities, but one specific intention that your brain can anchor to. This small act isn't about productivity hacks. It's about priming your nervous system for direction, clarity, and sustained attention. When you write something down by hand, you're not just organizing your day. You're activating deep neural circuits responsible for motivation, behavioral execution, and self-directed action. Here's how it works. The moment you wake up, your brain begins scanning your environment. It's looking for signals, cues, and structure. If you don't provide that structure, the external world will. Your phone, your inbox, your calendar, those will hijack your attention. But when you sit down with pen and paper and clearly articulate a single goal, you give your brain a focal point. The prefrontal cortex, responsible for planning and decision making, engages immediately. You start your day in a proactive, not reactive state. There's a mechanism in the brain called the reticular activating system, or RAS. Think of it as your brain's filter. It determines what information gets through to your conscious awareness and what gets ignored. When you write down a specific goal, you're programming your RAS to look for relevant cues, opportunities, and actions aligned with that goal throughout the day. It's like switching on a radar system that begins scanning your environment for ways to move you toward what matters. Writing by hand, physically, not digitally, amplifies this process. When you write, you recruit multiple brain regions at once, motor areas to guide the hand, visual areas to track the words, and language and memory areas to encode the meaning. This multi-layered activation leads to stronger neural encoding. In short, you remember it better and your brain treats it as more important. You're not just thinking your goal, you're embodying it. This one goal exercise also eliminates cognitive overload. Most people start their day overwhelmed. Too many priorities lead to fragmented attention. The brain can't fully commit to any single task. But when you define one goal, whether it's finish my pitch, do the workout, make that hard call, you streamline your cognitive bandwidth. You direct your internal resources towards something actionable and measurable. And this increases your likelihood of follow through dramatically. From a motivational standpoint, this also boosts dopamine signaling. Dopamine isn't just about pleasure, it's about anticipation of progress. When you set a clear goal, your brain begins to simulate success. It predicts the reward associated with completing that task, and dopamine levels rise to help you pursue it. And here's what's crucial. Dopamine is released not just when you achieve the goal, but every time you move toward it. That's how momentum is built. That's how habits are formed. Over time, this habit also begins to shift your identity. When you commit to setting one goal each morning and you consistently pursue it, your brain starts to encode a new narrative. I'm someone who follows through. I'm someone who creates structure. I'm someone who executes. These internal belief systems don't shift through motivation videos. They shift through daily action and repetition. They get wired into your brain through experience. There's also a psychological benefit here. Writing your goal down gives you a sense of agency. It reminds you that no matter how chaotic the world feels, you still control how you direct your focus. You may not control outcomes, but you control your effort. You control your attention. You control what you aim at. That's a form of empowerment most people overlook. And when done daily, it strengthens your cognitive resilience. Even on difficult days, the act of setting one goal and pursuing it gives your nervous system something solid to grip onto. This practice doesn't need to be time-consuming. It can take 60 seconds. What matters is the clarity and the consistency. It's not about being perfect. It's about building a mental framework for performance. Whether you're aiming to build a business, improve your health, develop a skill, or strengthen a relationship, your brain needs a clear target. Because the truth is, without a target, your mind drifts. But with a clear written intention, your behavior becomes aligned. You start to move with purpose instead of motion. Movement is not optional for optimal brain function. It's essential. For millions of years, the human brain evolved in a body that moved, hunted, walked, climbed, sprinted, and rested in cycles. Physical activity is not just a tool to sculpt your body or burn calories. It is one of the most effective interventions for mental clarity, mood regulation, and cognitive performance. When you commit to at least 20 minutes of exercise every day, you are training more than muscles. You are reprogramming your neurobiology. During physical activity, particularly aerobic movement like walking, running, cycling, or even intense bodyweight training, the brain experiences a massive shift in chemical state. Neurotransmitters like dopamine, serotonin, and norepinephrine surge. These are the molecules responsible for drive, happiness, alertness, and focus. You don't need a supplement to feel better. Your brain has built-in chemical factories. It just needs the right signal to activate them. Movement is that signal. One of the most profound molecules released during exercise is BDNF, brain-derived neurotrophic factor. Think of BDNF as brain fertilizer. It supports the growth of new neurons, strengthens existing neural pathways, and increases the plasticity of your brain, the ability to learn, adapt, and change. This is not theoretical. Repeated studies have shown that regular physical activity improves memory, speeds up learning, and even protects the brain from age-related decline. You're not just improving your body, you're literally upgrading your brain's hardware and software. 20 minutes a day might sound simple, but that's where the power lies. Simplicity, repeatability, sustainability. You don't need to go to a gym, hire a trainer, or follow a complex program. What you need is intensity matched with consistency. A brisk walk, done daily with full presence. A set of bodyweight movements, push-ups, squats, lunges, jumping jacks, executed with intention. A run that elevates your heart rate and clears your head. These activities require no equipment, but unlock maximum neurochemical benefits. The key is to push your system just hard enough to trigger a stress response, but a positive stress called estress. This form of stress tells your brain that adaptation is needed. Your metabolism shifts, your hormonal balance recalibrates. Your brain begins preparing for alertness, not fatigue. That's why even a short session of exercise in the morning can improve your focus for hours. You're not just moving your body, you're priming your entire system for peak cognitive output. For people struggling with low mood, fatigue, or anxiety, daily exercise becomes even more important. Movement increases the volume of the hippocampus, the part of the brain linked to emotional regulation and memory. It dampens the reactivity of the amygdala, helping reduce the intensity of fear and stress responses. It improves heart rate variability, an important biomarker for nervous system resilience. The body becomes more efficient at handling both physical and emotional stress. You train yourself to become more grounded, more present, more adaptable in the face of challenge. There's also a direct link between movement and self-discipline. When you make the decision to move, especially when you don't feel like it, you activate the anterior midcingulate cortex, a region responsible for effort-based decision making. You strengthen the very circuitry that allows you to take action under resistance. The more you train, the easier it becomes to apply discipline in other areas of life, focus, nutrition, work, relationships. Discipline spreads, and don't underestimate the psychological momentum of this practice. When you start your day with movement, you're sending a signal to yourself, I take care of my health. I create energy. I move forward. That sense of progress, even before you've opened your laptop or looked at your phone, shifts your emotional state. It grounds you in action. It gives you access to clarity before the world imposes its noise. Exercise doesn't need to be a punishment. It's not a chore. It's a gift to your brain. It's a way of generating your own fuel. When people say they lack energy, what they often lack is circulation, oxygenation, and neurotransmitter activation. Movement solves all of that. 20 minutes a day is not a sacrifice. It's an investment in your cognitive longevity, emotional stability, and daily performance. It trains your brain to associate effort with reward, fatigue with growth, and challenge with opportunity. Cold exposure is one of the most underestimated tools for mental clarity, physical resilience, and nervous system regulation. While it might seem uncomfortable at first glance, that discomfort is exactly why it works. The right amount of cold exposure, done deliberately, not randomly, triggers a cascade of biological responses that prime your brain and body for sharper focus, greater stress tolerance, and enhanced mood. This is not about testing your pain threshold. It's about training your nervous system to respond to stress without falling apart. When you enter cold water, whether through a cold shower, ice bath, or even face immersion in cold water, your body detects the drop in temperature instantly through thermoreceptors in your skin. These receptors send signals to your brainstem, which reacts by activating your sympathetic nervous system, your fight or flight pathway. Heart rate increases, breathing rate goes up, blood vessels constrict. Your body thinks it's under stress, but the beauty lies in how you choose to respond to that stress. What happens next is the release of norepinephrine, a powerful molecule that increases alertness, vigilance, and focus. Blood levels of norepinephrine can rise by 200 to 500% from just a few minutes in cold water. This is a surge of clarity, not agitation. This is nature's way of preparing you to take immediate, decisive action. But because the threat is controlled, not dangerous, your brain begins to recalibrate. It learns how to stay focused under discomfort. This rewires your stress response. Repeated cold exposure has also been shown to increase baseline levels of dopamine, the molecule of motivation and reward. But unlike the short-lived spikes people get from scrolling through social media or consuming junk food, cold-induced dopamine increases are long-lasting and stabilizing. Dopamine levels can remain elevated for several hours after the exposure, contributing to increased drive, energy, and mood throughout the day. This is chemical momentum that comes not from external stimulation, but from internal challenge. There's a deeper layer to this practice. It's about voluntary discomfort. When you choose to enter cold water, knowing it's going to be uncomfortable, You are strengthening the circuits of prefrontal override, your ability to take action even when your body and emotions resist. This is the essence of self-discipline. You're not reacting impulsively. You're overriding your reflexes with conscious intention. That mental override carries over into everything else you do, resisting distractions, pushing through fatigue, confronting difficult conversations. Cold exposure also trains interoceptive awareness, your brain's ability to sense what's happening inside your body. When you're submerged in cold, you become acutely aware of your breath, your heartbeat, your internal reactions. This awareness improves your ability to regulate yourself emotionally and physiologically in real time. You become more present, more embodied, more capable of choosing your response rather than reacting from instinct. From a physiological standpoint, cold exposure has other benefits as well: improved immune function, enhanced metabolic health, reduced inflammation, and better circulation. Cold triggers brown fat activation, which burns calories to generate heat, improving metabolic efficiency. It can also reduce delayed onset muscle soreness and speed up recovery when done correctly and not immediately after intense strength training. But it's important to understand the difference between deliberate cold exposure and random discomfort. The key is in the structure. 2 to 3 times a week, expose yourself to cold water for 1 to 5 minutes, depending on your tolerance. Breathing slowly through the nose while staying calm signals to your brain that you're in control. That's where the transformation happens, not from enduring the cold, but from remaining composed in the cold. Start with shorter durations and build up. The goal is not to suffer. The goal is to train. One of the most powerful things about this practice is that it builds internal trust. When you step into cold water and breathe through it, you prove to yourself that you can handle more than your mind thinks. That confidence carries into your work, your relationships, and your personal growth. You stop flinching when things get hard. You stop retreating at the first sign of discomfort. Instead, you lean in. You access calm in chaos. You activate the part of your nervous system that says, I've been here before, and I can navigate this. The first hour of your day is not just another part of your schedule. It is a critical window where your brain sets its internal chemistry and determines how it will respond to challenges, motivation, and stress for the rest of the day. One of the biggest mistakes people make in this window is reaching for immediate stimulation, checking phones, scrolling social media, replying to texts, consuming high sugar foods, or flipping through content that provides instant gratification. Each of these behaviors floods the brain with dopamine, the neurochemical responsible for reward and motivation, but in an unregulated, unnatural way. When dopamine spikes early and fast, especially without effort, the brain begins to dysregulate its own reward system. It gets conditioned to seek more stimulation, more novelty, and more quick hits of pleasure. This creates a dopamine roller coaster, an early high followed by a rapid crash, which leaves you feeling anxious, distracted, unfocused, and unmotivated within hours. And worse, the more you repeat this cycle, the more your baseline dopamine, the level of dopamine available when you're not actively chasing stimulation, starts to drop. That's when the world starts to feel flat. You feel less motivated, less energized, and less capable of deep work. The solution is simple, but not easy. Avoid dopamine spikes in the first 60 minutes of your day. Let your brain wake up naturally. Let it stabilize its own neurochemistry without flooding it with artificial stimulation. When you do this, you protect the brain's natural ability to generate motivation from within. You build resilience. You train your mind to delay gratification and stay grounded in internal cues, not external hits. One of the most powerful systems in your brain is the mesolimbic dopamine pathway, which connects the ventral tegmental area, vitae, to the nucleus accumbens. This is the pathway that processes anticipation of reward. It's not the reward itself that keeps you moving. It's the expectation of reward. But when you teach this system to expect immediate payoff, like social media likes, viral content, or the next video on your feed, you flatten your brain's reward sensitivity. You start needing more stimulation to feel the same sense of engagement. This is how distraction becomes addiction. This is how motivation starts to erode. The brain learns through what's called associative conditioning. If you associate waking up with dopamine-rich stimuli, your phone, sugar, caffeine, you condition your nervous system to crave those things every morning. But if you delay stimulation, even by 60 minutes, and replace it with natural inputs like sunlight, hydration, breathwork, movement, or focused journaling, you condition your brain to generate dopamine through effort, not escape. This builds what neuroscience calls dopaminergic self-regulation, your ability to pursue hard goals, stay consistent, and remain calm under pressure. There's also a hormonal layer to this. In the morning, your body naturally begins to raise cortisol, a hormone that promotes alertness and prepares you for the demands of the day. Cortisol and dopamine interact. When you spike dopamine too early, it can throw off the cortisol rhythm and reduce your alertness window later in the day. This is one of the reasons why people who start their day on their phones often report afternoon crashes, low energy, and difficulty concentrating. They burn through their focus fuel before 9 a.m. Delaying dopamine spikes also improves executive function. The prefrontal cortex, the part of your brain responsible for planning, reasoning, and self-control, operates best when dopamine is stable, not spiking. This is where discipline is built. When you can delay pleasure in service of purpose, you create a system that favors long-term reward over short-term impulse. You strengthen the part of your brain that says, do the hard thing first, which leads to greater confidence, momentum, and control throughout the day. Avoiding dopamine spikes doesn't mean avoiding all pleasure. It means stacking your rewards after effort, not before. It means teaching your brain that satisfaction comes after the challenge has been met, after the work has been done. This might look like waiting to check your phone until after your morning workout, or saving that podcast episode until after 90 minutes of focused writing. It's about creating neurological incentives that reinforce progress, not distraction. When you master your dopamine system, you master your day. You stop being a slave to cravings and start becoming the architect of your focus. The first hour of your day becomes sacred, not because of a mystical ritual, but because you've taken control of your biology. You've chosen intentional input over passive consumption. You've built a brain that's no longer addicted to noise, but anchored in clarity, effort, and internal drive. The momentum you create in that first hour doesn't just shape your morning, it influences the quality of your thoughts, the depth of your work, and the resilience of your mindset for everything that comes next.